And also, as we know, a lot of MPs are back in their constituencies now. This evening they've been facing their constituents, perhaps for the first time.
Indeed, they were hoping, many of them, to be campaigning for the elections over the next few days, instead of which they're having to explain themselves. Andrew MacKay, David Cameron's former aide, did a public meeting. He called one in Bracknell tonight. He came out afterwards and said that 75% of the meeting had backed him. But when he was interviewed by the BBC, some of the other people there disputed that.
There are people shaking their heads around us, Mr Mackay.
And there are people nodding, so I think it just depends on who you're listening to.
Mr Mackay, can I just say that you're misrepresenting the mood of that meeting?
Absolutely.
It was overwhelmingly opposed to you, and you didn't seem to have any degree of contrition. The mood of the meeting was in opposition to what you were saying, and saying that what you were doing was in the wrong. You're misrepresenting the mood of the meeting.
Another indication of the difficulty this is causing for politicians, the Shadow Health Secretary, Andrew Lansley, who visited Romsey Conservatives on Wednesday. The BBC has had some leaked emails between leading members of the party in Romsey about their misgivings about Mr Lansley visiting the town. He'd had to repay £2,500 in expenses. One Conservative says, "I don't think I'd feel comfortable introducing him on the doorstep or welcoming him into the town." Another one says, "Lansley will still come, but no canvassing. He will be in the office at 11:45 arrival, but let's hope incognito."
Facing the wrath of their constituents over the expenses scandal. Andrew MacKay, who resigned as special advisor to David Cameron because of his claims, was repeatedly shouted down at a constituency meeting last night. Victoria Gatenby now reports from Bracknell in Berkshire.
What is more important, you or the party? The party, right. Then you need to resign, because if you don't resign, the Conservatives will lose this seat in the next election.
It was a chance for Andrew Mackay's constituents to tell him what they thought of him, and they didn't hold back.
There was a greater degree of support for me in this room than is reflected on some of the people who have been commenting.
Rubbish! 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 Show of hands! Show of hands! Vote!
Andrew MacKay wouldn't allow TV cameras inside the meeting, but one Sky viewer managed to film it. Afterwards, Andrew MacKay told the media he had the support of the majority of the audience.
I think that the very important thing to note was that when there were speeches of support for me, over three-quarters of the audience clapped. When there was criticism of me, and I understand the anger out there, there was about a quarter of the audience clapped.
But as people left last night's meeting, it was hard to find anyone who agreed with his assessment that most people inside had been broadly supportive.
I think there were a lot of Conservative supporters, but overall the people of Bracknell spoke against him, and no matter how good an MP he's been, that's not my opinion, but the opinion of some, it doesn't justify him blatantly fiddling the expenses.
He's had his fingers in the public purse, and he's been caught, and he should be punished and driven out of politics.
He's got to go, he really has. And I voted for him last time, but he got hammered in there, totally hammered.
And as Andrew MacKay was driven away last night, those views were being echoed right across his constituency. Victoria Gatenby, Sky News, Bracknell.
More reaction to come to expenses throughout the morning, but let's get the rest of the day's news with Sarah Jane.
Thank you, Mark. Well, as a result of those MPs' expenses, 2/3 of voters believe that Gordon Brown should